Hi everyone, and welcome back to Stamp with Anna. And today I have the second installment of March's Technique Tuesday. And as I mentioned last week, my goal is to have a new technique showcased every month. And for the month of March, I was doing different ways to use your embossing folders. Last week, we used it to elevate this card here. Now I'm going to try to bring it up again. Instead of having just a plain white flat background, I did my stamping and then I ran it through the textile textures embossing folder, and it just elevated it very, very nicely. And I don't have at my fingertips the sample of the card with it flat so you can see the difference, but if you go on my video you can see that. And then we also used the same technique with the same embossing folder and made a nicely embossed envelope to go with it. So that was last week's technique. In this week's technique, we are going to ink up our embossing folder. So this is the card we're going to make. And again, I have a lot of my elements to the card already made because the video is more to showcase the technique. But I will go through this whole process of how I made this adorable little card. And I'm going to use this for my husband's birthday card, so I have to hold on to it till October. It says, birthday wishes to the man who can do anything. In his case, that should say everything, because he's a jack of all trades. He's a handyman. He's our landscaper. He's just marvelous. So let's get started making this. Okay, so we're going to emboss using the Brick and Mortar embossing folder, and I absolutely love this one. I like the texture, the look of the texture. We used to have, Stampin' Up! Used to carry another one. It wasn't a 3D, and it was a smaller size, and it had large bricks. That was beautiful as well. But this one, by far, my favorite. So I'm going to open it up, and you see here how it has Stampin' Up! On one side. When I open that up, that's the side I want to ink up. I'm going to use Cajun Craze, and actually, I'm going to turn it this way because I'm right-handed. And I'm just going to ink this up nicely. And don't worry about the embossing folder. Just run it under some cool water, and it comes clean, perfectly clean. Okay. So there's that. I have a piece of Whisper White that's cut. Basic white that's cut at 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm going to drop that right in there. I'm going to close my folder. Now I'm going to bring up my Big Shot. And I have the platform. And I'm going to put in my embossing folder, and I do want to make sure that the folded edge is going in first. And because it's a 3D, I just need my blue plate. And I'm going to run that through. And one of these days I will get the new cut and emboss machine. But for now, my Big Shot has lots of life left. I'm going to open it up. And when I open it up, you see that my brick now is beautifully colored, and it looks like weathered brick. You can do it the opposite side. It just gives you a different look. If you were to emboss the back side of the embossing folder instead of the front side, this is what it would look like. So it's a little lighter, and it looks like the mortar is what's popped up. I wanted my brick to be more popped up, so I went this way, and I wanted the, you get more color doing it this way. So again, that was having the ink applied on the front part of the embossing folder, which says Stampin' Up! And that is the technique. Now quickly, I'm just going to put the card together for you so that you can see how I made it. The stamp set that I used is the Home and Garden stamp set, and it does have coordinating dies. And you can see lots of dies. There's 14 in here. You have some that cut that images that aren't on this, like you have grass and little stones, you have wood, and you have these hooks. And then you have a die for all of the gloves, the rake, the shovel, and whatnot. And you do have these 2 extra blades, so instead of just stamping the shovel, you could actually cut that out in like silver foil or something. Just a thought. These are in the January to June catalog. So here is our card front. And so I'm going to mount that. Actually, before I mount it, I think I'm going to do my, I'm going to put it together and then I'll mount it. So I have my brick. Now, I have already stamped and die cut all of these pieces. I did want to show you what I did though, to save some time. I mounted everything on 2 big blocks. And then I just stamped them on my basic white, just like this. After they were all stamped, I used my Stampin' Blends and I colored them. For silver, I used the dark gray granite. For the wood, I used dark crumb cake. And then inside for the gloves, I used yellow. I've seen different variations, but my husband's gloves are yellow, so I used yellow. And then I cut them all through, ran them all through the die cut machine, and I got all of my many, many pieces here. So there is my ladder, my shovel, my rake, my shears, my gloves, and my little hand spade. Okay, then there is a die that looks like this, and it die cuts and embosses this piece here, and I used that as the wood to hang my tools from. Then there is a die that looks like this, and it cuts 3 little hooks that I put on my wood. And lastly, there are some dies that cut out these little chunks of grass. So like I said, all of my stuff is done, so all I have to do is put it together. I'm going to show you how I added a little bit of dimension to my grass. So with a quartered sponge and some garden green ink, and I did cut my grass out of garden green, I just pounced on my grass just to give it a little bit of texture, and it's probably not going to show up on the camera, but if you look real close to it, you can see that it has a little texture in it. So it's just not a flat one-dimensional piece of paper. So now I'm going to bring I have a glue pen, and where's my silicone pad? Oh, there it is. I'm going to put all my little pieces on a silicone pad, and I'm going to ink them up, glue them up. Oops. And I'm going to come right down to the bottom, because I don't want my grass blades looking like they're floating. I'm going to put a piece of grass there, and then I'm going to put a smaller one right next to it. That one has a little too much glue on it, but it will dry clear. So again, making sure that it's right at the bottom of my card so it doesn't float. Now I'm not going to put the rest of my grass on the other side until I put my ladder up. So here's the ladder that I die cut. And you'll see it has adhesive on the back of it. And what I used for adhesive is these foam strips. And I'll show you how I put them on. I didn't do it to my rake. So when I get to that part, I'll show you how these work. So I'm going to take the backing off of the foam strip. And I'm going to put this right here, kind of towards the edge. Okay. Now I can put my grass, because I do want a blade of grass right there in between the two legs of my ladder. So I'm going to turn this over, and I'm just going to put this right here in the middle, and I want, again, to have that right against the bottom of my brick piece, because I don't want my grass looking like it's floating. Now I have my other piece of grass. I'm going to put some adhesive on that, and I'm going to put that not right next to the other one, because I don't want it too asymmetrical, matchy-matchy on both sides. I don't do that. And there it is right there. And again, I'm going to push it right to the bottom. Okay. Now I have my shears, and for my shears, I put just a tiny little strip of that foam strip right there, because it's going to sit right here, and the blade part has to be elevated, but these two handles don't. So I'm going to put some adhesive on the handles, and then I have that little strip of foam right there in the front of it, and I'm going to position it where I want it to go. And the front part, because I put that foam strip underneath it, it's going to be on the same height as my ladder. And then the handles, where I didn't put the foam strip, I just put adhesive, is flush up against my ladder. And that way I don't have all these different layers of heights. So now I'm going to bring in my piece of wood here. And I'm going to put adhesive on the back of this. Okay. And I'm going to have it end right before my ladder ends. So I'm just going to drop it there. And I don't want to put it right in the middle of that brick, because that's not realistic. I'm going to put it on the mortar. Okay. And I'm going to press. And now you see I have a little piece that hangs over. So with my scissors, I'm just going to snip that off. Okay. And there's that. Now I want to attach my other tools to that piece of wood. But before I do that, I want to put up my little hooks. And these hooks are just so adorable. They have a little, I'm sure you can't see it on the camera, but they have a tiny little embossed centerpiece that looks like the screw where it would have been used to go into the wood. So I'm going to put one right here. Okay. And now I'm going to take my shovel, and I've already put my foam strip on the back. I'm going to peel that off. And I'm just very gently going to lift these two. See if I have my pierce tool right here. I'm going to just gently lift these up. You have to be careful so you don't rip them. And it doesn't fit perfectly, but if possible, I want it to look like it's actually holding that blade. See that? And there you can kind of see them underneath it. Okay. Now I want to do the same thing with my my rake. So here's my back piece, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that, and I'm going to bring it over about an inch away from the other one. Now remember, I didn't put my foam adhesive on this, so here's the back of it, and here's the strips. They come in these great strips. So I'm just going to peel one off, and I'm going to run it along the back. And I can just take what I don't need, snip it off, and put it back. And it's ready for the next time I need it. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to peel off the back on it, and I'm going to very gently try to lift these up. This one is going to be look a little different because the rake is so skinny. But we're going to try. We're going to give it a whirl and see if we can still get that to look like it's holding it. And there we go. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to make a sign that goes here. And I have my last hook. I'm going to put adhesive on that, and I'm going to center it here. Now I may or may not have left enough room for my sign, but that's okay. All right, and I'm going to make this look like it's actually holding a sign, and you'll see how cute and easy that, simple and easy that is. It's a scrap white paper, and with some black Memento ink, I'm going to, hold on, I'm having a lighting issue. I'm going to ink up the stamp that says birthday wishes, and I'm going to just stamp that. Okay. Now, you know me, I don't do a lot of fussy cutting, and I'm very quick to say that I cannot cut a straight line to save my life, but I'm going to try. So I'm going to just cut close to the edge here because I don't want it to be too wide. Okay, and I'm going to trim. Not too bad, so far so good. Okay, I guess I can cut a straight line. So there it says birthday wishes. And now I'm going to mount that onto a piece of soft suede. So I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on this. And I'm going to mount this right here. And trim. Now I could probably distress this a little bit just to make it look like it's been weathered, but I don't think so. So now what I'm going to do is turn this over, and I'm going to run a little bit of adhesive along the back of this. Okay. Then I'm going to bring in some linen thread. I'm going to cut just a tiny bit off. And I'm going to put this, just make it like a, kind of try to center it and make it like a hook, okay? Now I'm going to bring in some mini dimensionals, and I'm going to put one in the center and one on either end. I'm still leaving that string there just in case I have to make an adjustment. If I don't have to make an adjustment, I'll just trim it off. Okay, so now once again, I want to try to lift these up. Oh, I already did that, I guess. Lift that up a little bit. And I'm going to hang my sign on that, okay? And now I'm going to press. And it could have been a little more to the left because you'll see my sign hits my ladder, but that's okay. I'm just going to leave it that way. Okay, so now I'm going to just trim those little pieces off. And I have my sign hanging up. Isn't that adorable? Now I'm going to mount that on a piece of basic black, which I've cut 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. And I think I'm going to, rather than tip this over and it's bulky, I'm going to put my adhesive on my black. Actually, I'm going to attach my black to my garden green base. And then I'm going to put some more adhesive on that. And this is a very small border. I'm going to take this and just pop it on there. And there's my front. Now I have a piece of basic white that's 4 by 5 1/4. And now I'm going to ink up the stamp set that says, "To the man who can do anything." And like I said, for my husband, I think I'm going to cross off anything and make it say to the man who can do everything, because he is such a handyman. Nope, and I don't like how that came out. So fortunately, my papers are thick enough that I can just turn it over and restamp, and no one will see my mistake. All right, so here we go. I must have just rocked that. Straight down, straight up, perfect. Okay, and now I will attach that to the inside. And I'm going to drop that right in there. Now I have my two little, my other two elements. I have my little spade and my gloves. So I'm going to just attach some adhesive on the blade, the spade, and I'm going to put that down right here on the bottom. And then I'm going to put some adhesive on the gloves, and I'm going to overlap them off to an angle. Now, I could have just stamped them straight on there and then just colored them, but I thought I would give it all a little dimension. So we have our card showcasing another way to use your embossing folders. Ink them up, and it really just brings them to life, especially when they are the 3D embossing folders. So if you have any questions at all about this project or any of the products I used, certainly let me know. You can contact me through my website. It is www.stampwithanna.net. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you would give it a thumbs up and if you would consider subscribing to my channel. If you do not have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator with whom you work, certainly let me know and I'll be glad to help you out. And this embossing folder, again, is called Brick and Mortar. It is in the annual catalog. And the stamps and the dies are from the Home and Garden bundle. The stamps are called Home and Garden, and the dies are called Garden Dies. Those are in the current mini catalog from January to June 2022. Thanks so much, and have a great day. Catch me back here next week for another way to use your embossing folders.